Here we go. And 3, 2. What's up, everybody? Mark and Sarah back for another episode of Able Today, bringing you all the latest and greatest breaking news in the disability space. Sarah, have you been following the U.S. Census controversy for people living with disabilities?
Mark, I have. It started last year when the Census Bureau proposed some changes in terms of how it counts the disabled population. Many would say that the Bureau has always undercounted our community, the people living with disabilities, because the survey questions really have, in the past, focused on whether respondents experience functional limitations in hearing, vision, cognition, walking, difficulty with daily activities, etc. And hopefully we're going to be making some changes and some strides to ensure that people with disabilities are included in the census in different ways.
Well, as you know, it's just another avenue of the fight that we have to continue to wage against all of the bodies that I think don't always recognize disability for what it is, and sometimes try to stifle the voices of the disabled. And that feels a lot like what is going on here, but we'll be monitoring the situation closely, and hopefully it will be contained and controlled in the right ways.
Well, what gets measured gets changed, and with the census happening every decade, I mean, this is really, I think we've moved past like the ADA generation, right?
Yeah.
More people with disabilities than ever before are getting access to competitive integrated employment, but are we counting our community in the right way and reaching them in the right way?
Well, what I know to be true is that all of the organizations that have been advocating for this specific body of rights for people with disability will definitely be doing that. But speaking of the advocates and the organizing, I think one of the groups that rarely really gets enough credit for parts of the movement is the rare disease movement, and how those voices really started getting loud before the ADA, like everyone else, kind of screaming for the same things.
It's kind of like the opposite of the census, Mark. The rare disease community for, I think, a very long time has felt like they've been on an island because so many of the rare diseases that have been diagnosed and determined in medical literature and everything that goes along with genetic testing are so rare. In the case of ultra rare, the only way you're connecting with folks, you may know 20 people that have that condition worldwide.
Right.
They're connecting on Facebook and social media to find, their people.
Yeah. And it's always beauty in hearing those stories now, like about the social connectedness through social media and how different it was in the 80s and even the early 90s, before the internet was really a tool to bring people together the way that it does today. Yet and still, though, they found a way to organize and to move things forward in ways that really contributed to the ADA movement. And today's guest is gonna dive all into all of that incredible advocacy. You wanna give everybody a little background on Miss Laura Castillo?
Yes. So Laura is the executive director for the 5P- Society. As she'll dive into this in a little bit more detail on our episode. It's a small organization. She's an N of one. She's the only staffer running this nonprofit, but she's an incredible advocate, not just for her community, but we'll learn a little bit more about her daughter, Katie, and their diagnostic journey in the late 80s in terms of what it took to get her daughter diagnosed with 5P, which is, as we said, kind of a rare genetic disorder. And then early on, how Laura found her people, and then how that has been kind of fostered and fueled through social media and her ability to kind of connect with other caregivers, parents, and patient advocates from around the world. We're excited to have Laura on. And we met, it's a great story because I think this promotes the work that we do at Able Today, day in and day out. Laura and I met informally on a webinar, an evening webinar that we were doing. She had some great ABLE questions, reached back out for ABLE Today materials for her national conference, and signed up her daughter, helped her daughter open up her ABLE account. She'll talk about that as well. And I guess, Mark, the rest is history.
Well, a better time like the present. Let's bring her on. Welcome to the show, Laura. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you guys doing today?
Well, I'm doing great. Sarah, how you feeling?
I'm doing well. It's been a crazy start to the week, but we've been looking forward to having you on the show for a while now. So excited to be here.
Thank you.
Well, Laura, I really admire your advocacy work, and I think it should be said that not everyone would have done what you did when you found out about Katie's diagnosis. And, you know, in 1987, before the internet and AI and all the tools, I mean, can you just tell us what that was like and how that diagnosis changed you and your family's life?
Yeah, that was crazy time. So after she was born, because when she was birthed, she had the cord wrapped around her throat. So after she was birthed, she cried. She had this like distinct cry. She sounded like a little kitten. And I even said, "Oh, she sounds like a cute little kitty. Is there something wrong? Did the cord cause something, like maybe a bruise or something to her larynx?" And oh, no, she's fine, until they started doing all these testing on her and they realized she was much smaller than she should have been. She had that cry. She just different things, right? That a normal child born wouldn't have. And the nurses actually noted, Mom says she sounds like a kitten, which I didn't know they did that. And about 3 hours after birth, the doctor walked in and said, I think we need to run some tests. That cry you said you heard, yeah, that's a distinct characteristics of this 5P minus, or at that Creedy-Shaw syndrome is more of what they were talking about. We've kind of changed that narrative, but Creedy-Shaw's cry of the cat and 5P minus. So he wanted to run tests. He told me about it, and I was just like, I think I just became numb at that time. I cried. I had questions. There was a lot of questioning, not a lot of answers, not knowing, it was very, very rare. It's very rare, I should say, 1 in 50,000 births. And so the doctor really didn't know too much of what to tell me. One thing great things that came out of that conversation was he asked if I had a pediatrician, and I said no. And he said he would love to be her pediatrician. Mm-hmm. So that was one really good thing that came out of that conversation, because I didn't know what I was going to do at that point. My family, super amazing, super supportive. She's the oldest grandchild on one side, like third or fourth oldest on the other. My mom and dad, who were living up in Northern California, they said, we're selling our house. We're moving back down to be near you because we know you're going to need the help. My brother worked in the medical field, and he found a textbook that said the prognosis was grim. She'd never walk. She'd never talk. She'd never be part of society in any kind of way, shape, or form. So that's what we started with. After our first conversation with the doctor on our first appointment, he kind of said, look, we're going to do this together. I don't have answers for you, but let's do what we can. Let's work with what we can and treat her like any other baby. So that's pretty much what we did. My husband and I walked out of that crying, but we said, let's do what we can to help her reach her full potential, whatever that is. If that was going to be infancy the rest of her life, or if that was going to be more than, then we would just take it as it was, and we take it as it came. So that's pretty much how my first initial introduction to this whole syndrome came about. We connected immediately with regional center here in California. We have regional centers. They assisted us with getting therapies and all that stuff, but they also provided us with a phone number for the 5P minus society. And at that time, it was very, very infancy. So we called and got a phone call back and talked to a parent at that time. So that was like it. That was our first initial whatever. with the syndrome.
What a journey, Laura. So we know we've had a couple of guests on our podcast before that kind of represent that voice in the rare disease, rare condition community. Talk to our listeners a little bit about what 5P is, and maybe what are some of those differences than more of those common, disabilities that we tend to view in our society.
Sure. So 5P minus, in a nutshell, is a deletion of the P arm, which is the short arm of the 5th chromosome. That deletion can be minute. That deletion can be a little bit bigger. It could be the whole P arm. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It happens at meiosis, or first cell division. And it just, you really don't know that this is happening, because all those prenatal tests that you typically take, or I should say I took, remember I'm an older mom, my daughter's 36 now, nothing showed up. So there wasn't any indication that there was anything wrong until after she was birthed. Now with prenatal tests, it is one of the syndromes that is found. So the characteristics, besides the cry, is low birth weight, failure to thrive, so they don't grow very quickly. They have both cognitive and physical developmental delays. So speech and language skills are very delayed. A child with the syndrome may or may not speak. A child with the syndrome may or may not walk. You don't know that going in. Mm-hmm. You don't know that based on the size of the deletion. There's no correlation that says, oh, your child has this deletion at this point. Does that mean they're going to do this, this, and this? No, you don't know. So it's all very, you're going in blind regardless of where the deletion is. We know a lot more now than we did back then, so that's great. Compared to some of the other rare diseases, we're still very not known, where like Down syndrome is so well known. We're 1 in 50,000 births, and I'm not sure what theirs is, but it's so rare that people don't know about us. We don't get the funding because it's hard to, a lot of the funders want, how many people live in this area that you may have 2, right. You may have 1, where maybe in Down syndrome you'd have several hundred, I'm just kind of giving that relationship. So that's a big challenge for us is getting funding, getting donations, any type of awareness. We have to really push awareness. We have our awareness month is in May. We really push awareness at a time. We have a lot of social media stuff that goes on. So, we're really trying to just get us out there more for families to know about us.
Laura, did you have a background in biology or anything before?
My background is in community health education.
Okay. Yeah. I was just thinking, so my mom, I had an accident 8 years ago that paralyzed me, and my caregivers had to become the biggest advocates, right? So I was just listening to you talk about 5P and thinking about my own mother and how like she had to become a subject matter expert on spinal cord injury, and and that's the case for every caregiver. And I think really similar to your experience, like it took me a second to find community. When Sarah was doing her intro, she mentioned how long it took you to finally meet another child with 5P and their parents. But 5P minus society, and you have really managed to change that relationship dynamic, right? Can you talk to us a little bit about that and what it's like nowadays when parents find out their child has 5P?
Yeah, that's a great question. It did take me a long time. I was actually afraid to meet another child with the syndrome more than anything else. Again, young mom, not knowing much about the syndrome. Now with social media and just the ease of finding things on the internet, Oh my gosh, I'm getting calls all the time. I'm getting
Right.
calls, or not calls. I don't get calls anymore. let's take that. The phone could probably go away because I don't get that many phone calls. I get a lot of emails and social messages on social media,
Hmm.
and just that's the way people are connecting now. Where before we had nothing, right? We didn't even have email at the time, so we had to make those phone calls. And we had to make those personal connections. I think that people are still reluctant to meet others in person. I think it's easy to have the screen between them and to see the pictures and know the stories of other families and other kiddos and not to compare. But once you meet another child or family member, parent, or whatever with the syndrome, it's like an immediate release of anxiety. You're like, all of a sudden, you're meeting somebody else in person. You're able to talk to them. You're able to read them. You see how they interact with their child is the exact same way you interact with your child. So there's a lot of similarities. We call ourselves brothers and sisters because that's what we become. So yeah, I would say without social media, without internet, email, any of that, it's just been a game changer for sure. And I'm sure you know that too. Just being able to connect with other family members or other individuals. Yeah, I also have, it's just really tough though, because it's just me. I'm the only employee. We have a volunteer board of directors, which I rely on tremendously. And they do help me out a lot. Like I cannot be on social media 24/7. So thank goodness.
Nobody wants to.
It's
Mark
like,
and I were talking about that. Nobody wants to be on social media, or should they?
Right.
Their own mental
no,
health.
no. And so thankfully I have these volunteers who help me monitor those things.
That's a really good thing, and that's a good kind of segue into my question. You're an amazing executive director. You're an N of one running this organization, but you're also Katie's caregiver, caretaker. I've had these conversations with Mark and his amazing mom, Rhonda, who also Mark allows you to do the advocacy you do because you have Rhonda in the picture, schlepping through DC with us, trying to keep up with you. That's a full-time job in itself. But we know caretakers aren't paid for their work. We're hopefully trying to change some of that at the federal and state level. But can you talk to our audience a little bit about how vital it is for caregivers to have support and to take care of themselves too in this journey of caregiving?
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing because we have like a mom's chat group that meets like maybe 2-3 times a year. And that was one in the last one, that was the big question that came up. How do you turn off the mom, or how do you turn off the caregiver? You're constantly the mom and the caregiver, right? You can't turn them off. They just don't turn off. But I think the caregiver, you exert a lot more energy as the caregiver because you're constantly having to repeat things with them, or you have to have a lot of patience with them. At least mom could be the cuddler and the and stuff, but the caregiver, you've got to be on them 100% of the time. You're doing that. My release for me, and I talk about this a lot because I'm also a mental health education trainer, is you've got to do self-care. So my release is daily exercise. I try and do that in the morning, but of course that gets, sometimes I'm like hearing something in the background with her dropping something or getting into the shower, and I've got to stop what I'm doing just to take care of her. And then I can get back to my exercising. But that's my thing. I love to sew. I love to read. Maybe I'll get back to those things when I'm retired, I guess. I don't know. For now, I don't get to. But one of the things in mental health first aid training is self-care. And we do try to make sure that individuals walk away from a training knowing that they've got to create their plan and they've got to do their best to work their plan. So I do that with my group too. Whenever I meet with them, I do have during the conferences, I meet with the adults actually with the syndrome, and I do a little workshop with them, and we talk about self-care. We talk about things that they could do to make it easier for them if they're able to.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
that's good advice for, I think, for anybody, right, Mark?
Absolutely. I need to connect you with my mom because she is definitely a gangster, and I respect her gangster.
That is the best way to put it. I think you summed up Rhonda so nicely.
Yeah, she walks with this tilt like she's about to beat somebody up. I get real scared.
that's hard.
We should all fear our moms.
You straighten up real quick. You be like, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. I promise it wasn't me. Just lead with that. But Laura, tell us, the work that Sarah and I really focus on is promoting ABLE accounts and sharing stories and information, but always trying to bring it back to ABLE and how beneficial ABLE has been for families. Can you talk to us about how life-changing it's been to have an ABLE account for Katie and being able to save money without, the threat of losing those benefits?
Yeah, when I first heard about the ABLE account, I was like, "Ooh, this is cool." Yeah, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about that going over that because we did that once. We went over and I was like, "Oh," so they had to pull it back. But I was reluctant. I will be honest with you, reluctant to open that up immediately. So it wasn't until that nice presentation that Sarah gave that I was included in that then I'm like, okay, thanks. I think at first, because this has been a while since it's been available. I think at first there were still some things being worked out, maybe, and I don't know. I just kind of was like, hold off. But I am so pleased that I finally made that choice to do that for her, and I think she is too. It was so easy, and I think you guys have it. You've done such a great job in educating us parents on how it will work, how it works, how easy it is. I think that was a lot of it too, is not knowing how it works. So having involving myself in that presentation was great, because then I was like, okay, I got it now. I understand it. I got it. We're going to do this. And I did. And it was so easy. And I'm so relieved not having to worry about her benefits. And I can just do that transfer of funds every month just to make sure. And now she has an account and she can grow that account. I even told her, I said, hey, you've got $500 in your account. And she's like, oh, I do? And like, of course, she wants to spend it right away. And I'm like, no, this is first. You can save this, this is going to be something that you can save. You don't have to spend it right away like you usually do. So that I think we're on our way. We are pretty novice, so we're pretty new at it, but we're on our way. And I think that I'm very pleased with that. This is available to our individuals. I know a lot of the other individuals with the syndrome have it, so have the ABLE account. So I know that you guys are doing great work. I appreciate it. And I think that I'm going to just learn more as things go on. So thank you.
Love it. You actually covered my last question too, which was, what's the best thing about ABLE? I mean,
the best thing I think was not only was it easy to set up, but that you guys have the investment options, right? And then I don't have to worry about the transfer. It just automatically happens. I don't have to, like before, with her money that she gets from Social Security, I'm like, oh my gosh, every month I have to make sure it's,
right.
Now it's like, oh, it's an automatic. I don't have to worry about it.
That's so good to hear. We look forward to doing more with you, Laura, to promote ABLE accounts with the organization, whether that's national webinars, continuing to support your conference in any way that we can. You're going to be one of our best, you and Katie are going to be our best spokespeople for ABLE accounts.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for providing us with that information for the conference. I think I hopefully individuals will take that to heart and then open their accounts, or at least look at your websites, get some information. I did tell them how easy it was, so I'm hoping it helped.
Good.
I love that, Laura. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story. I think I speak for the entire Able Today team when I say hearing stories like that is why we do the work that we do. You know, it's important, but being able to get people to buy in and speak directly with folks about like what's real, what's not, and has been incredible for us and really helping to grow the understanding of able accounts.
Yeah.
But more holistically, being able to impact the lives of people impacted by disability, it's just powerful work. And so for that, I thank you for all of the work that you do as well. I know it's tough being a one-man band sometimes.
I know.
That's okay.
You got to be the lead singer and play the tambourine.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what? We got to do what we got to do, right?
Absolutely.
I think that was my path. So that's the path I'm on. We'll see.
Well, we're glad your path brought us to Able today. And
yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And to our listening audience, thank you for listening to another episode of Able Today. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.
Thank you.